The Sandman is a unique show created by Netflix based on the works of Neil Gaiman. Neil Gaiman has this obsession on giving concepts form. A perfect example of this is American Gods, with modern gods of technology, or Good Omens with the Four Horsemen. In this story, we follow the living embodiment of sleep, Morpheus, as he recovers from his imprisonment and deals with the consequences of being trapped for 100 years. There are some truly great shots in this show, interesting themes exploring destiny, honesty, death, and the nature of human spirit, even the idea of what it means to dream. I'm going to do an episode-by-episode breakdown exploring my feelings, small details I noticed, and some headcanons. All this will remind you of everything that happened in Season 1 so you can go into Season 2 fully refreshed and informed. So let's get started. We start with the first episode, and an explosion of establishing shots introduce you to how the world works, a gorgeous use of show don't tell, displaying the grandeur of the dreaming, which really helps to hit the contrast when we see it later in the show in tatters. The story is introduced by this side character, and what I like is that while Morpheus is giving his speech about the dream and how it affects the real world, we can see the same character in both. In the dreaming, he looks to have a face of contentness, contrasting the real world anxiety, a great way of showing the importance of sleep in this world as a mean of rest and escape, emphasizing the importance of Morpheus being captured. We then meet the son of a bitch who moves the plot forward at the beginning, Magnus. I know that's not his real name, it's his magic orgy title, but that's what I'm going to be calling him because he looks like a Magnus to me. But before we discuss him, I want to talk about how the Corinthian is different at the beginning, treating Morpheus with both fear and respect. When we see him later, even when he's confronted by Morpheus, he has big dick energy. He literally pulls out a knife and stabs Morpheus. I have two theories on where this character development came from, and probably both are true. One, he spent too much time in the human world, destroying and devouring what he wants, and this made him grow in confidence. 100 years of serial killing will go to anyone's head. Two, once Morpheus is captured, he sees that he's not infallible, which actually makes him come up with plans to take him down. The actor they chose to play Morpheus is fantastic. He really does have this ethereal feel to him while also looking like he just got out of bed from a nap. Seeing interviews with him all happy-go-lucky was so bizarre, sort of like seeing Rosa from Brooklyn Nine-Nine in her real face. Even his body's perfect for the role.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
What I mean is he's so skinny and lanky that he really does come off feeling very helpless once he's in the cage. There are two people who held Morpheus imprisoned, and they are both very different people. One was an evil man and the other one was a weak one. Let's start with Magnus. Magnus is the head of a magical cult and is trying to convince people to capture Death so he can bring Randall back to life, his son he lost in the war. Now at first, it seems like a very understandable, if not misguided motivation. Here's the thing though, I think this man is chatting utter shit. I do think he's trying to save his son at first, don't get me wrong, but I also don't think he cares as much as he leads on. I just think it was a good way to get people on his side. I have 3 reasons for thinking this. Number 1, he was very quick to ask Morpheus for other things once he knew he wasn't Death. It was literally like, can you bring my son back? No? Okay, give me some cool shit. And then over the course of 10 years, he asked for more stuff, but he never brings up Randall again. Number 2, he treats his other son Alex like shit, even threatening to kill him at one point. I find it hard to believe that this man's fatherly instincts are that strong, which perfectly leads to reason number 3. He tries to stop his next son from being born. Even if you think he hates Alex for his personality, there is no reason to have his next born killed. If anything, not liking Alex is a bigger reason to keep it. Honestly, I think it was just an easier sell to his cult. Let's bring our family members back, instead of let's make me immortal. Also, if we're being real, he's really shit at magic. Even Morpheus calls him an amateur. Really think about it, he had the same ruby John had later, meaning he had the ability to make his dreams come true. And he actually does nothing with it. Before Magnus dies, a woman named Ethel becomes pregnant with his child and runs away with Dream's tools and a small fortune in cash. These characters become important later in the show. Once he dies, a death which is sort of ironic because it comes from his own anger but also at the hands of his son, sort of, we then transition to Alex as the jailer. For a second when Magnus dies, you can really see that Morpheus has some hope of release. And to be honest, I think if Alex was alone, he probably would have done it. But Alex is mistreated by his dad, which we see even as early as Morpheus's capture. Magnus is too scared to get the tools in case something happens, so he sends Alex. This man is competing with Tucker for Father of the Year here. Alex is shown to be timid and scared, which is everything you'd expect him to be considering his father. But this is where we explore the idea it only takes good men to do nothing for bad men to prosper. Alex wants to let Morpheus out, but is too scared to do it because his father told him that Morpheus would slaughter them all. And you know what? From a purely selfish perspective, Alex made the right choice. I don't believe for a second that Morpheus would have just let him go without repercussions if he had let him out when his dad died. Look at this face. Morpheus decided to take Alex out the minute he killed his bird. Ironically, Morpheus spent like 10 times as long imprisoned by Alex than Magnus, even though Alex is the one who actually wanted to let him out. And as soon as he did, what did Morpheus do? He sought revenge. When the seal was broken, I do think it was an accident by Paul, as he looks back to see the seal has been broken. I think keeping it unsealed was the decision. It was sort of like the trolley problem. Paul wasn't willing to switch the tracks, but once the tracks were switched, he wasn't willing to switch them back. I might be wrong about that. It might have also been intentional. He must have felt so guilty when the love of his life didn't wake up and he knows it's sort of his fault. That aside, I want to discuss the original Raven. Firstly, that is one loyal ass bird. He tried to save him for 10 years, and honestly, I was on board with her plan until the ending. How are you going to create a fire, pretend to be a statue, and your final step is literally banging your head against the wall? The first time I watched it, I was so confused why she wouldn't just go get back up, ride into that mansion with the dreams like a battle in Narnia. Rewatching it this time, I was actually able to notice a few clues that might have explained why she didn't do this, and it's related to the sleepy sickness. Firstly, terrible name. Did a toddler name this? Either way, the idea is that some people fall asleep and don't wake up, and some people couldn't fall asleep. I think it's that dream is the living embodiment of the portal. That is why some people are struggling to cross. When Morpheus goes back to the dreaming, the librarian lady does say that some dreams went looking for him in the living world. The only explanation that makes sense to me is that the portal was closed so the Raven couldn't go back for help. But this is just a headcanon, maybe she just didn't think of it, was cocky and trying to save the boss by herself. Also random thought, the doors to the dreaming kind of remind me of Killua's testing doors from Hunter x Hunter. I thought it was such a fun little throwback when Dream started pushing it. But with that, the episode is done, the stakes are set, the dreaming is in ruins, and Morpheus has a plan to rebuild. Let's start with episode 2. While episode 1 was all about establishing the world, I would say that episode 2 does much more to establish the direction of the plot for the next few episodes. We are introduced to numerous pieces that will play a part in the coming story and won't die of old age in the first episode. Unique concept, I know. Straight off the bat, it is established that Morpheus lacks the power to accomplish his goal of restoring his kingdom. But like any good god project manager, he breaks it down into doable steps. Step 1, talk to the fates, which leads to step 2, get his tools back, which he will need to restore his power so he can in turn restore the dreaming. This whole scene has some very interesting lines.
Food and perhaps a bit more rest, and then you'll be back at full strength.
Does that mean that Endless need food? Obviously not to survive, because I doubt Magnus fed him, but maybe to keep their strength up? It could also explain why he looks so skinny in the glass cage. Just give this man a cheeseburger, Jesus.
Books in the library became bound volumes of blank paper.
The librarian said the books became blank after he left. I thought it was interesting because as a general rule, people can't read in their dreams. Maybe this is because the real dream of the Endless never escaped. But that's just a theory. A conspiracy theory. Finally, retrospectively, I thought it was a little crazy for her to ask him to get help from Desire, considering their long-ass rivalry. But then they continue the story. Dream goes to Cain and Abel in order to dissolve Gregory to get some temporary magic to pay the fates. The interaction between them is actually very heartfelt, as while Cain and Abel treat the gargoyle as a pet, the dream treats him more like a person, asking it directly for help and seeming genuinely sad at its death. I also found it interesting that he couldn't absorb Cain and Abel, saying that he didn't create them. I have a headcanon here, but I think they're not dreams, because who the hell dreams of the first murder? I think they are the actual real Cain and Abel, but it was so long ago and people weren't dying yet that there was no hell and heaven, so the dreaming already existed, so they were sent there. That's the afterlife they got. Again, I didn't read this anywhere, I could be wrong. It's just a little headcanon. It is a little messed up that they're forced to relive their trauma. At the end of the episode, it does seem to be implied they are cursed to kill and be killed.
Can't help it, it's not his fault, it's who he is.
It sort of reminds me of To Be Hero X. Now this is a spoiler for the anime, so if you haven't seen it, skip like the next 20 seconds. In To Be Hero X, heroes get their powers by trust, but are also forced to bend to the will of people's perception of them. The best example of this is Sandman, a hero who's seen to always be, well, standing firm. As a result, he can never sit or lie down because perception creates his reality. And this is how I see Cain and Abel. They are perceived as being murderer and murdered, so they're forced to relive that story.
The first murderer, the first victim. This is our story.
Otherwise, maybe it's just that Morpheus doesn't create all the dream inhabitants. I mean, later in the episode, we see that the main dreamland is just the hub. The rivers are the individual's dreams, creating world within worlds. Maybe that's where they came from. It does also make the vortex make more sense later. The main dreaming is literally just the center with everything flowing around it. The vortex becomes the new center, destroying the balance. It makes a lot of sense. With that, Morpheus enters the river in order to get 3 gifts for the 3 fates and have 3 questions answered. Now, I am an absolute sucker for Greek mythology. Just wait until my Percy Jackson video comes out, you'll see. So seeing the Fates on TV, I was very excited. And honestly, this has to be the best version of the Fates I've ever seen put to television. The way they shift between as they're speaking, they really are the embodiment of the idea of 3 being 1 and 1 being 3. Even when they speak, when they're discussing Cersei, the past focusing on what he has done, the present saying that's in the past and so they have to focus on now, and the future focusing on the present, which is the future of what Dream will give them. Dream now has 3 mini quests that he must complete. I am now realizing that it is the exact same quest that Thanos had, but with fewer steps. So it should be easy. Contact Constantine, go to Hell to retrieve the helm, and get the ruby back from Johnny Boy. The next few episodes are laid out. With that part done, let's focus on Ethel. How the hell did I not realize the first time I was watching this that she should be dust in the wind? It is especially obvious next to her son, who they basically look like the same age, but her ability to hustle has now made her a successful broker. This hustle was shown in the first episode as she was able to talk her way through Alex and into the party. It also makes sense considering she was able to barter a trade for the amulet. She really is the best trader around. She went to hell and back for the best deal. She is approached by the Corinthian who wants her to destroy Morpheus with the ruby, but instead she destroys him. I thought it was interesting to note that it seems like only Morpheus can destroy him completely, as even with the amulet from hell, he's just sent back to the dreaming. Where Dream would have been if he had just been a little bit more patient and he could have saved himself a hell of a lot of work later. But I digress. I also wanted to bring attention to another line.
Your eyes will tell me everything.
This is used to hint at the real reason why the Corinthian kills people, because by cutting out their eyes and eating it, he can see through people's thoughts and feelings. He wants to feel human, and this is the closest he'll ever get, literally seeing the world through our eyes. This is confirmed in the final episode with the quote,
So I can taste what it's like to be human.
But yeah, with that, the second episode has come to an end, and Morpheus is off to see Constantine. The episode starts with a dream of her backstory, which I'll move on to in a minute, but first let's discuss her performing the exorcism in the church. I felt like it was a great introduction to her character, as she's shown to be somewhat selfish, only agreeing to help if she's paid triple, creative in problem solving by dressing up as a priest, and kind of disrespectful to authority as she doesn't listen to a literal god telling her to stop the exorcism, showing no feel remorse after. It is kind of funny that they implied you can't tell the difference between a woman in love and a woman possessed by an evil demon, because in my experience, that is fair.
She didn't seem possessed. She was. Love fucks you up.
No, I'm just kidding. I thought it was even funnier that the demon didn't have some kind of big evil plan. He literally just wanted clout.
Are you sure you don't want a big royal wedding and a dysentery type wedding? With like the queen and photographers and stuff?
Has anyone tried speaking Latin in front of Logan Paul? No, but in all seriousness, I have a confession to make. I actually really like Clara in Doctor Who. I know, she isn't the most popular of the companions, but I like her flirty, cheeky little energy, at least with Matt Smith. I was mad excited to see her in this show, and you know what? She really didn't disappoint. I liked her. I will unfortunately have to say I preferred Arrowverse's version, but then again, he was trying to embody the comic book character, while this was kind of more of a twist on it. That is not a criticism of her. I hope she returns in the second season. I will say one thing that actually annoyed me personally is that they changed the way they say the name. Constantine instead of Constantine. It's not a big deal, but it did make me question myself as a DC fan. Like, I was wondering if I've been saying it wrong all these years and looking like an absolute bellend. Just a small existential crisis, or like I like to call it, Tuesday. Let's discuss the introduction of her dream, showing the backstory of how she became what she is. pragmatic, and a little bit heartless. Joanne is basically suffering from nightmares about the time she was unable to save a little girl from going to hell. And what a crazy gruesome backstory, by the way, with the arm being left behind. I mean, she's only a 9-year-old child with a shitty dad. That being said, if I'm being honest, they really dialed down how much Constantine was responsible. In the original comic book, John's plan goes to hell,
If you pardon the pun.
and he summons a demon that he loses control of and takes Astra to hell. While he didn't create the situation, it was quite literally his reckless plan that led to her damnation. In this version, it's actually Father of the Year who summoned them, and Joanne was trying to send it back when the little girl came into the room and got pulled into the crossfire. Tragic, of course, but honestly, how much was it her fault, as both the father and the daughter made some really dumbass decisions? She's basically suffering from survivor's guilt. That being said, do you know what is her fault? Rachel. It does not make any sense that she's just leaving unknown magical items lying around people's houses. Like, the pouch wouldn't open. I actually don't care. It was incredibly irresponsible for her and led to someone's death. I will say this edit between shots made me laugh.
Whatever they're doing up there, they're not thinking about you.
I actually think her relationship with Dream is really interesting. Firstly, because she doesn't think he exists at first. He has been gone so long, he's faded from reality into fantasy, even amongst magic users. But mostly it was their personalities, because she pretends to be heartless, while Dream actually really is kind of heartless. Heartless isn't the right word, he's just a god, so he is above it all, lost what it means to connect with individuals when looking at the big picture. It's also said in the show that he seems to hold resentment to all humans for what Magnus did to him, which to be honest makes a lot of sense. The only humans he has seen for 100 years were involved in keeping him captured. It took someone new to remind him that humanity is not always at its worst. We can see this play out when they find Rachel's living body. Look at how nonchalant he is, taking the pouch and going, claiming they can't do anything to save her, so there's nothing left to do. It isn't until Joanne puts up a verbal reflection that he sees he may be acting more like Magnus than he cares to admit.
All you care about is your sand, your power.
In the end, Dream is able to give her a peaceful passing as she dreams of the woman who ghosted her. I mean, am I wrong? Joanne did ghost her for 6 months and led to her death. I'd be dreaming of beaches in Sydney Sweeney before I dreamt of my ex. Both Dream and Joanna have proved to each other and themselves that neither of them is like Magnus.
No, I'm not Roderick Burgess.
And so they can move forward with just a little bit more sympathy. Small side note, I really like Patton Oswalt as a voice actor. Matthew the Raven isn't necessarily his best role, but that's only because I absolutely love him as MODOK. It is a criminally underrated show, go check it out if you haven't seen it. Imagine MCU meets Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Enough said. I noticed something interesting that he said though.
But then I wasn't the best person when I was a person.
This is once again reaffirming that not all the things in the dreaming is created by Morpheus. Let's move on to the side plot of the mother and the son having a crazy ass conversation in a basement. This is where Johnny's golem is starting to show as we see the crazy obsession he has over the ruby, which honestly, kind of fair. He's literally a god with it. I'd be pissed if someone took it as well. I will say this, I respect the mum for only letting him use it once a year on birthdays, because I would spam the shit out of that thing. God, I'm John in this story, aren't I? I'm just saying, she was going from abusive relationship to abusive relationship. Maybe it is wrong, but you could dream a perfect dad for your son, or dream a world where your abusive boyfriend is actually Henry Cavill. Is it wrong? Yes, but so is wearing a magic amulet that kills anyone who tries to touch you.
Seen what happens to people who get on the wrong side of you and that thing.
With this quote, it's heavily implied that he has seen this woman vaporize people in front of him in the most gruesome way. Not gonna lie, I wouldn't take what you say seriously. You're trying to hold the high ground when it comes to murder when you have literally turned people into soup. This interaction also shows he has an obsession with truth. With his mum lying to him all these years, now he just wants honesty. This is obvious foreshadowing to what comes next when he finally gets his ruby. But interestingly, when she tells him a terrible truth,
your father was a cunt who wanted me to abort you.
He doesn't even flinch.
That may be the first honest thing you ever said to me.
Going to show that despite everything, he actually can handle the truth, which is probably why he doesn't realize most people can't. But at the end of the day, she does end her life in order to protect her son, while also freeing him. She must know he's about to walk out there. That amulet is too OP. Not only do you vaporize anyone who attacks you, but also the attack magically misses. This shows that while she may not have made the right choices, she did love her son in the end, and was a better parent than his father would have been. She crumbles as the old age she's been suppressing catches up with her. Johnny is now free and on the path to find his ruby with a murder necklace on his side. Well, technically around his neck. Also, Not gonna lie, this nightmare is more omniscient than Dream. Always knows where and when to be. It's very suspicious. But all the pieces for the next episode are set. Dream has gone to hell to recover his gas mask, and Johnny is going for his ruby.
It has many names. Avernus.
And so that brings us down under. Not Australia, but somewhere else that's hot and also filled with monsters. Is Australia hell? No, it can't be. Or could it? No, in all seriousness, Dream and Matthew have gone to hell to retrieve his anteater bug looking at. And right from the beginning, you can see the setup. They are doing everything they can to get under Dream's skin. Firstly, the disrespect at the door, which both shows that he feels the need to be intimidating, but also his general disdain for demons that will come back to bite him later. I also found it interesting that he refers to himself as ruler of the nightmare realm.
I'm the king of dreams. Ruler of the nightmare realms.
Which honestly, if you're trying to intimidate a demon, is way better than ruler of Night Night Sleepy Land. They then go on an absolute walk. This demon is acting like they're in Lord of the Rings, questing through Middle Hell. But this again is a form of disrespect leading to Naja, a woman with a mysterious past with Dream. Basically an ex, it seemed they had a terrible breakup which led to Morpheus imprisoning her in hell for 10,000 years.
I've not yet forgiven you.
Let it go, bro, you have bigger concerns. That being said, I really hope they address this past in season 2. But this just further proves my earlier point. Dream is someone to hold on to a grudge. There ain't no way he would let Alex go if he was released. When we finally meet Lucifer, a person that Dream is genuinely scared of.
Saving only the Creator, Lucifer is perhaps the most powerful being there is.
This tells us that there is some form of God, which in turn explains all the rules they have to keep. They don't want to make Daddy angry. God, that word has really been ruined, hasn't it? My children are going to have to call me bro or Batman. But anyway, Dream uses his sand to summon the demon, and this is where the trap was unleashed. Pay close attention to what he says here.
He will have to fight me for it.
The key word being me. Not sure how much of this was Lucifer's plan, but everything from the moment he came to hell was leading to this one line. We have seen that Dream hates demons. We have seen that he isn't scared of even the strongest demon, and we know that Lucifer wants Dream on his side. It was this face. It was the moment he knew he fucked up, as Lucifer is named champion and changes into battle clothing. This version of Lucifer is actually really good. You can really feel that she was once an angel, which I like because I feel like a lot of TV shows and movies always drop that part. She's angelic, but with every sentence having an underlying manipulation or threat.
The tools are the subtlest of traps.
Not only is this great foreshadowing later when the ruby's broken and the Dream gets his powers back, but also a fantastic way for Lucifer to remind Dream that he is weakened and backed into a corner. The game of creation begins, and such a great idea. In concept, but in reality there's no rules to this. Because honestly, I would start with a nuke. They start with Wolf, and within 3 turns they're on Universe. The scale of escalation is terrible. And also, Dream is terrible at the game. I said it. After she becomes bacteria, he just starts playing an offensive game. I'm a world, I'm a universe, I'm hope. Now, you want to cause damage to your opponent. I'd be like, I'm Lucifer Morningstar. See if you can beat yourself. A small Easter egg that I noticed here is Lucifer is the serpent. I thought that was really clever, like a cheeky little nod to the Adam and Eve story. But with hope being the final answer, which was fine, but a bit of an underwhelming way to end the game if I'm being honest. Dream has now won his gas mask. I made a Thanos reference before, but the tools really do feel like they overlap with the Infinity Gauntlet. They accomplish different things. Sand lets him move, controlling space. The helm lets him see, becoming omniscient, as before he couldn't see the ruby, but once he got the helm, he knew exactly where it was. And the ruby lets him create. I am curious if in season 2 they'll touch on why he has tools, as none of the other Endless seem to have them, and Lucifer saying it's a trap implies it's optional. Just not something I would do if it weakened me, to be honest. But with his tube face returned and sand in hand, he only has to get his ruby back, which he does, and it tells him to fuck off. He has a new master now. With that, we move on to the B plot. Johnny Boy is in a car hitchhiking with the most selfless, sweet woman you can possibly imagine. I think a lot of the B plot themes actually leads into the next episode, which revolves around honesty and lying. John is completely honest, literally too honest, let's be fair.
She had me arrested, of course, and thrown in prison.
For stealing the ruby?
And arson.
This actually causes him problems, as if he hadn't said anything, she would have drove him there and it would have been fine. But protected by the amulet, he doesn't have to face the consequences of his honesty, a theme that is shown in the next episode as well. This would have included a bullet to the head. But the thing is, her philosophy is that people are good as a rule, but lie because they are scared. But she is the living embodiment of this point, as at the beginning, she is very open with him. She's open about her marriage ending and the trauma she's experienced.
10 years before I found out he had another wife and another kid.
It's a very personal thing to talk about with a stranger, and she literally says,
I think lying is maybe the worst thing you can do to another person.
but when her life is threatened, she ends up constantly lying to him. Not saying that lying to a serial killer is necessarily a bad thing, but in this rare case, he values honesty above all else. I'm pretty sure if she had just said, you scare me, I don't want you in my car, he would have been like, bet, safe travels. But instead, this moron gets blown into a million pieces. I know you shouldn't speak ill of the dead, but he's an actor, so I don't care. And also, come on, man. Why in God's name would you call the police in the room where he can hear you? Go to the back room, pretend you're checking stock. And with the ruby returned to him, he gives her the murder necklace, which means one of two things. She's either going to go on an unintentional murder spree herself, or she's going to end up in prison. The amulet fucking kills anyone who attacks you in any way. She is not him and his mum. She can't move away when she murders someone. Hell, what happens when the dog bites her by accident is dead. What he did was basically curse her. And with that, the stage is set for the next episode, which I'm really excited to talk about because it is actually my favorite. Episode 5 is basically a theatre play based entirely on one dimer and barely including Dream, or Johnny for that matter, as they both take a backseat so we can follow a few guest star characters, all of which are used to explore the reasoning and consequences of lying. The basic premise is that John is basically stripping away their ability to lie, but it goes deeper than that as shown in the episode. There seems to be 3 degrees of lying: the lie we tell others, the lie we tell ourselves, and the emotion beneath it all. I can show this concept with the waitress. Hell, the first thing she tells him is a lie.
Best seat in the house.
Which no, obviously it isn't, but I want to focus on different ones. The first lie is the lie we tell others.
No, of course I don't.
Once John strips that away, we can see her struggling to grasp what the truth actually is. Several times she almost says to make you feel good, but in the end settles with the real truth.
I wanted you to like me.
There we have stripped away the first 2 layers, the lie she told him that she thinks he's good looking, and the lie she told herself that she thinks she's doing it for him, but when in fact it comes from a deep need to be liked. I also like this subtle foreshadowing.
That's because you know when to stop.
In the episode, John keeps stopping people from leaving, creating a loop for them to stay. But the question is, if he had let them leave, maybe the conversations they had while speaking the truth could have led to more honesty in return. But instead, he doesn't know when to stop, meaning,
The trouble with stories is if you keep them going long enough, they all end in death.
this really does reiterate the point that John is broken. The final phase can be seen when they all have sex, stripped away from all social concerns and returning to their base animal instincts, to fuck or to fight. Everything is falling apart around him and he shows 0 emotions, looking at them like rats in a cage. We can even see this in the later clip,
You're still seeing it with your eyes.
which has this weird implication that he sees more than her, like a bigger picture she can't see. He has basically started viewing himself as a god. And to be fair, when you can warp people and reality to your whim, are you not? This is another reminder that Magnus was a shitty magician. He literally had all the power in the world and didn't even know it. The second point that makes John a psychopath is that when he kills everyone, he doesn't do it quickly. He makes them torture themselves in very ironic ways, like Marsh the cook cutting off his own fingers. But it's also shown there are positives to telling the truth, as Bet finds out that the cook has been sleeping with her son and finally accepts he ain't interested in her. Obviously this win is very short-lived as they all die anyway. I like that all the different characters are in different places in life and have different reasons for lying. The waitress is more about self-denial and white lies, contrasting the married couple who seem to be more honest with themselves but lie about everything to each other. Even Mark, who doesn't really have any reasons to lie, comes to some realizations. I will say, John should have been a therapist. He would have been great at it.
I think I'm a few years away from any girl wanting to date me.
It's at this point that the fates have returned to give John a prophecy of his future.
You will crush the dream lord's life in your hands.
This kind of gives me Macbeth vibes, I'm not gonna lie, because I'm curious if he would have crushed the ruby in his hand if it wasn't for this subconscious planting of the idea. It doesn't feel like something he'd do considering how obsessed he was with it. But yeah, Dream confronts John and presents an alternative perspective.
Lies, John. Dreams.
Is the lie we tell ourselves really just hope? I mean, I tell myself that this YouTube channel can get 1 million subscribers. Will it? Who knows? Likely not, but the lie I tell myself is part of what motivates me to make these videos. I like that perspective. But let's continue the story. They then battle in the dream world, and I wonder if John is the one who's creating these damaging visions of his mother. But I don't really think so. I actually think it's Dream using psychological warfare to destroy him. In the last episode, it's shown that he threatened the demon at the gate that he can manipulate people to give them nightmares. He is the king of nightmares. So it makes sense that this is how he'd attack John. Can I just say, when John breaks the ruby, releasing Dream's true godly power, this has to be my favorite shot in the whole show. Like, he truly feels like he's lived up to the name Endless. But there are two very interesting points I want to acknowledge about the ending of this episode. Firstly, Dream says,
I'd forgotten just how much of myself I had placed in the jewel.
Again, implying it was optional. And again I ask, why would you do this? And secondly,
The Dreamstone was not made for mortals, and it came to you through no fault of your own.
this felt like character growth from the last episode, as he's starting to see humanity as less predatory and more to be protected. Compare this reaction to that of Alex, who also ended up with Dream through no fault of his own. It was his father who captured him and he was just scared. If anything, John was definitely the more evil of the two sons, but Dream was able to show him mercy. I like this subtle growth. That being said, Dream's punishments, his help, and his mercy all come down to go to sleep, bro. That's literally his solution for everything. But with that, and a small cameo from both Rose and Desire, we can close the chapter on part 1 before we move on to the next part of the story. Before the next part of the main story begins, we have a brief interlude, 2 smaller stories that are about death. Well, to be technical, part 1 is about death and part 2 is about life. So let's begin with episode 6A. This is the part where we explore death as a character and the purpose she serves. I also found it funny that since the beginning, Dream kind of has always looked like a teenager going through an emo phase, but now he's acting like one.
I'll come with you, I suppose.
Dream came out of imprisonment with a purpose, a quest, but that quest is now done. He feels directionless. This isn't something that most shows can explore, as in most series the final showdown with John would have been the final episode. But since they wanted it to feel more like a comic book, a collection of shorter stories, they were in a unique situation to explore this. But yeah, we meet Death, and this is probably one of the most interesting interpretations of death I've seen. Don't get me wrong, the supernatural one will always be the OG, the best. But this explores death as something softer. Ironically, Death seems to enjoy life more than anyone else we've seen so far, but also seems to have a better connection with people than Dream does. Instead of being a big scary skeleton, she gives more of a carer or nurse vibe.
That all they really need is a kind word and a friendly face.
I thought this term was interesting, as we know from the hell scene with Nadja that they can control their appearance. This means that Death chose this face. Did choosing a baddie to play Death show that the process of death can be beautiful to some? Or did she choose the face because it was disarming, as we saw with the guy trying to get her number? Or with Harry, who was way too comfortable with strangers being in his house? None of these people are scared to see her, maybe sad, but they all seem to recognize her when they look properly. But mostly they treat her like a friend would, reflected by the line,
We're here to serve them.
A small but interesting note is that when Death takes people to the other side, which we don't see but we can hear, it does sound like a whooshing of wings, giving it an Angel of Death feel. I also found it interesting that while she was there for the people who died, she's always very quick to leave after. I think this has the implication that the hardest part of death isn't for the ones who died, but for the ones who get left behind. Overall, her story is not only to remind Dream that he doesn't need a purpose beyond the purpose that he serves, to be the Dream Lord, but also to remind him that they are not above humans, but colleagues in their journey.
Our purpose is our function.
A sentiment that directly leads us to episode 6B. Like I said, part A explored the tragic beauty of death. Part B explores the tragic beauty of life. Hobbs is a man who's been given immortality. Ironically, something that Magnus wanted but didn't get. Hobbs got it for a game or an experiment. It really was a personality hire. But anyway, at a fundamental level, they wanted to see if they could break the most optimistic man in the world. Hobbs is someone who loves life more than anyone else, excited about things like the invention of handkerchiefs, and once every 100 years he meets Dream to update him on his life. That once every 100 years thing is so real. It's like trying to make plans to meet with your friends after 30. I'm free the first Sunday in 2026. I'm not free then. Nah, I'll see you in 2029. It was so easy when you're at uni. But anyway, over the course of 500 years, we can see not only how Hobbes changes, but also how the values of society affects him. Perfect example of this is the concept of slavery. In 1589, he's excited about the end of slavery in Britain,
Where no man is slave or bondsman.
only to later want to participate in slave trades, claiming,
It's just how it's done.
I like that Dream calls him out on this. He's like, I'm giving you freedom, why are you taking it from others? And it does look like Hobbes respects his advice. They do a good job of showing the ups and downs of society in these brief windows of time. and also how society can improve and make someone feel better.
Chimneys. Not having your eyes watering all the time from the smoke.
But more importantly, it shows the ups and downs of life. I know he lived for 500 years, but if you meet someone every 10 years, how would their life change? How would they change? Society aside, we can see Hobbs mature with each passing, becoming less hectic and more calm. In 1589, he's shown to have grown arrogant in his wealth and status, but the horrible drop he experienced in 1689 made him learn from this experience. We can see this in 1889, where he was
insulting money away all over the world.
He never wanted to leave himself in that situation again, so he pre-planned in a way he didn't before. All these dates is making this start to feel like a history lesson, but I digress. That being said, this man is a way bigger optimist than me, and I'm quite the optimist. The man lost everything before 1689. His wife, his unborn child, his firstborn son, money, burnt as a witch, and was so hungry he could die without actually dying.
If he doesn't die, but he doesn't eat.
And yet he doesn't buckle.
It's a mug's game. I've got so much to live for.
There is nothing that can break this man. Honestly, it's kind of inspiring. Or just plain stupid. I'd rather go with inspiring. He really does love the ups and downs of life. When life is up, he is excited and happy. When life is down, he's like there's nowhere to go but up. It's actually kind of a beautiful mentality if I'm being honest. I also think this is the moment where they truly became friends. Even if Dream doesn't acknowledge it for a while. A long ass fucking while. I would also like to point out that Joan's plan is the stupidest plan of all time. Let me break this down for you. She hears of a man who sits down once every 100 years with the devil. Her words, not mine. We know he's not a devil, but they don't know that. So for the sake of this, she thinks he's the devil. She wants him to bless her with gifts, similar to the immortality that Hobbs has and the passion that Shakespeare has. Her plan is to show up with 2 mercenaries and threaten to slit their throats. Let me say that again in case you didn't get it. Her plan was to threaten the devil with a knife to grant her immortality. Not gonna lie, I am not trusting any devil who is scared of something I can use to make sandwiches, and how is he gonna give you immortality if he doesn't have it himself? But yeah, at this point the two are friends, but Dream still can't acknowledge it because he sees himself as above humanity.
Suggest one such as I might need your companionship.
It isn't until Magnus imprisons him, making him miss the next meetup with Hobbs, plus a reminder from Death about his own humanity, that he's able to go to Hobbs and acknowledge their friendship.
I've always had it impolite to keep one's friends waiting.
Took him long enough, further showing the growth he's been experiencing throughout the season so far. I also like the fact that they showed how important Dream was to Hobbs. He built a whole new inn and waited there for years for his friend to return. Remember, Dream did not return on the anniversary. Hobbs was there waiting for him this whole time. The episode ends in a giant statue of Desire, with them literally at the heart of it, because where else could Desire come from if not from the heart, ominously foreboding the threat of the next few episodes. And so we move on to the next chapter of the story, Part 2. The next episode is another episode where Dream isn't really the main character, as we focus on putting the pieces in play for Rose to be the Vortex. But the episode doesn't start with her, it starts with the twins, Despair and Desire. It's interesting to call them twins, as in a way they're kind of opposites, which I guess was kind of the point. But god damn it, they did a good job with Despair. She literally looks like the living embodiment of depression. Cardigan, unwashed hair, and a face that looks like it hasn't smiled in 10 years. The start reveals that not only was Desire responsible for setting up Dream with Magnus, but it was also step one of a greater plan, connecting the two parts of the story. That is also done with the addition of Unity, one of the first people suffering from the sleepy sickness. We established a few important elements with her. 1, she has been asleep for years since she was 12 years old. 2, she had a baby in her dream that was actually born in real life, which means someone in that hospital is going to jail. Like, I know we find out that Desire was the baby daddy, but they don't know that, which means their natural assumption is going to be that someone took advantage of a comatose patient. Fucking sick, but not unheard of, sadly. Finally, that baby makes her related to Rose, who is the Dream Vortex. All of these will be important elements in the concluding story. The episode establishes that there are 3 important dreams moving forward from the dream world. The Corinthian, who we already know very well, the shapeshifter Gold, and a magic garden that is later revealed to be Gilbert, which, not gonna lie, I didn't see coming. Maybe you did, but I thought there was something off about him, but I didn't think he was gonna be a garden. I mean, the whole house is filled with the quirkiest characters you'll ever meet. A drag queen owning a B&B who literally sings songs about dreams, the creepy goth sisters / lovers. Even the normal looking people are called Ken and Barbie. They're the weirdest ones of all. If your name is Ken, it should be illegal for you to marry someone called Barbie. There was a whole movie about why this was a bad idea. The second B plot revolves around the serial killers that are trying to reach out to the Corinthian, and showing the impact he has had on the waking world.
The Corinthian inspired.
Showing that not only has he had an impact through his killing, but also that had a ripple effect that created a whole genre of collectors. It also has an implication that the serial killer convention is where it's all going down, as the Corinthian tell the organizers that Rose will be there, implying some form of a plan. Can I just say, it is so unfortunate that this guy really does look like a kid diddler. Like, I think he just has an innocent looking face but with an evil twinkle.
All these beautiful little kids wandering off on their own.
But I promise you, if my agent put me up for this role, I would absolutely change my whole style. Hair, clothing, everything. Everything's gone. But I digress. Finally, we get to see the inner workings of the Dreaming, showing that in his absence, the librarian became the new leader of the Dreaming. And not everyone is super happy about the shift back now that Morpheus has returned.
Everyone knows you secretly run this place.
The transitions for the Ravens from Dreaming to Real World was gorgeous in a completely different way than in the first episode. They really have outdone themselves with these shots. With all the side plots covered, let's focus on the primary focus of the episode. Rose is quickly established to have a protective bond over her brother, but after the time skip it's shown that she still can't find him. We get a lot of information and very effective use of time. We understand that her priority is family, as she is disappointed at her mum for buying her an apartment when she could have used the money to find Jed. She is then brought to London to meet Unity, her great-grandmother, and immediately accepts her as family, giving her a big hug. This shows that she's been craving family as much as Unity has. She then gets another flight, this woman is a world traveler, back to her old town to find Jed, all funded by Unity. She then meets and connects with the people in the B&B. This whole coming into the house really felt like a dream, like a bunch of ideas thrown together that only a subconscious could create. I really liked it. It made it feel really surreal, and for a while there I really thought that was going to be a dream within a dream. But no, she's just a vortex, so her real life is becoming the dream. She is then visited by the Fates, who give her probably the most misleading prophecy yet, which is a pretty high bar considering what they told John. No wonder the librarian didn't want Dream visiting them. They are extremely unhelpful, and in this case counterproductive. She gets turned down by the adoption agency, but is shown to want to continue the search anyway, as we see in the later episodes. Dream has also established what a dream vortex is and the ramifications of her existence, establishing her as a universe-ending threat. There is one thing that confused me. Why is Dream so excited by the prospect of a vortex? It's so weird considering what she is, what she can cause, and what he has to do to her. This is the most happy I've seen him, and it's when his own shit is threatened to be taken apart. He really is an emo. But I digress. Rose then appears in the Dream Palace with a cliffhanger of her meeting Morpheus. We also quickly establish that Jed is not okay, man. Like, he is going through it. The level of hate and fear they were able to establish in a single scene was actually incredible. I understand the dynamic that he has with the abusive dad, the fact that the mum is too weak to stand up to him, and the crisis that Jed is facing. Thus bringing us to the end of episode 7 and the start of episode 8. This directly picks up from where the previous episode ended, with Rose talking to Dream, as they cross-compare quests and realize they have a common objective. If they find Jed, they also find gold. Have you noticed that this whole show revolves around him finding 3 things? Weird. Anyway, we finally get an explanation of what the Dream Vortex is.
She can travel through the dreams of others.
With the Alliance formed, they promise to meet up again the next night to search, and a promise of Matthew to keep an eye on her during the day. A decision that was impeccable, as it stopped the Corinthian from approaching her on the beach, showing that the Corinthian is smart enough not to get into a direct confrontation with Dream. But as any good stalking serial killer does, he goes with plan B. Just ask Joe from you. He finds Jed as bait to lure Rose to him. This was kind of a small thing, but I noticed that Rose had an interesting reaction to gold.
She's a nightmare?
This sort of gave me the feeling of disbelief, and I thought it could be foreshadowing that gold is no nightmare at all. But let's take the plot character by character, as there's a lot going on. Rose and Dream, like I said, teamed up and are traveling through people's dreams. First the drag queens, then the goth girlies, and then Ken's. I was kind of curious about Ken's dream. Was it a dream or a memory, as there is an implication of him being, let's say, loose with flirting in the real world. Maybe it's just a guilty conscience, or maybe Barbie really did find Ken in the playhouse. She finally follows the dream to find Jed, showing that her powers are growing and she's getting some level of control over them. Jed, on the other hand, is having superhero dreams, and none of this MCU DC gritty stuff. We're talking classic 1960s Batman, with shark repellent and everything. Which makes sense, because what more could a helpless boy want than the power to fight back? There is a sort of red herring earlier in the episode where it looks like Gold is giving him a nightmare as he's attacked by rats, only for it to be revealed that it's actually the nightmare of his life that is invading his dream sanctuary as he wakes up in a basement bitten by a rat. I like the fact that Dream seems oddly amused by Jed playing him as a superhero, but this had to be Gold's idea because there ain't no way he came up with this exact look, name, and power set alone. It's too much of a coincidence. Jed vaguely tells Rose where to find him in the real world, only for her to get there too late as Jed is now with the Corinthian. I hate to say this, because all life is sacred, but that guy deserved to die. Not the mum. She was also a victim, and yes, life is sacred, but he was a big piece of shit who beat children and his wife. He literally threatened to break every bone in Jed's body. He is a child.
And I will break every bone in your body.
Putting this guy in the ground might be the only good thing that the Corinthian does all series. Quick side note, trackabeing.com has to be the creepiest website name and concept. Jeffrey Dahmer is using this page like Facebook. We need to shut this down ASAP. Dream, on the other hand, has to deal with Gold now that she's captured, and they explore an interesting concept of nature versus nurture. Dream thinks you are what you are, and we all have responsibilities, including him.
We do not choose to be created, nor do we choose how we are made.
While Gold dreams of being something more and her actions present her as something she's not. She's acting more like a dream than a nightmare. It must be so weird to be able to actually face your creator and be like, what the fuck, dude? Why did you give me ADHD? Sorry, I was projecting there. He imprisons Gold into darkness for 1,000 years, or, you know, until the finale where he frees her and makes her a dream. Dream then continues the debate with the librarian, who unironically is kind of the living embodiment of all the ideas presented by Gold. She was something else before becoming the librarian, and then she became the leader of the dreaming in Morpheus's absence.
I used to be something else.
Dream ended the debate by literally going, "Go back to the library, you damn librarian." Goes to show it's really hard to argue with the king. It is an interesting character weakness that is being presented here. In the previous part, it was all about Dream learning to connect with people, which he did for the most part. But part 2 seems to be more about acknowledging his own creations and accepting change.
Do you think they came back out of love?
This idea presented by Gold paints Dream as this like evil dictator king who's feared by his own subjects. It is also presented with this idea when Gold refers to him as
The king of nightmares.
a title we've only ever seen used as a form of intimidation. The final side plot involves Lita and her dream husband. Dream husband here has a double meaning because he is both the perfect husband and only exists in her dreams, like many of your husbands.
Boom. Roasted.
That is a joke, please don't hate me. But yeah, it makes sense that Lita would be the first person to be affected by the dream vortex, as she is not only the person physically closest to Rose, which we've seen to have an effect, as she always enters the dreams of the people closest to her, but also emotionally. She then becomes pregnant by her dream husband, apparently they didn't use dream condoms, and wake up with either the biggest bloat you've ever seen or a dream baby in reality, showing that the walls are starting to collapse between dream and reality, just like Dream said. And that brings us to the end of episode 8, which, to be honest, is sadly one of my least favorite in the series. It wasn't bad, it was still a good episode, but in a show with a ton of great episodes, someone had to be last. I didn't really fuck with either of them that much, but let's see how episode 9 picks things up. Episode 9 probably has one of the most interesting settings for any episode, let alone just for this show. A serial killer convention. I love the little twist of serial versus serial. Who knew that serial killers had a sense of humor? But no, yeah, they really aim to show that serial killers come in all shapes and sizes, and all different means of killing. I find Jed's character particularly interesting in this episode because he still seems very trusting. I mean, it makes sense, I guess, for him to trust a Corinthian because he doesn't know that he killed his abusers and he also knows his sister.
He's gonna come looking for me.
But also he trusts Funland enough to go to his room. Hell, it's a miracle that he didn't have that rebellious and mischievous nature beaten out of him years ago. He still seems okay to misbehave and not listen to authority. I'm gonna say this again because I know I've said it before, but this guy is too good at playing a diddler. Can someone please put him on a watch list, please? No, I'm kidding. I know he's just an actor doing a great job, but also I'm so glad he dies this episode because I don't want to ever see his face ever again. I find it so interesting that they have speeches like Comic-Con does. Watching Gilbert go around was so funny because obviously he doesn't know it was a serial killer convention, and especially when he goes into the women's convention, he's nodding along like, yeah, until they mention violence, and then he went from approving the message to a what the fuck face seamlessly. And I like the fact that the religious nuts didn't agree with each other, because they all think they're the one true killer of God.
Born again Christian, I want to disassociate myself from this madman.
But going back to Rose, she basically spends the whole episode looking for Jed. To be honest, she's not that interesting in this episode. She finds him and the soon-to-be diddler as they get chased down the corridor in a absolutely terrifying scene. Did I mention I don't like the diddler? But before that, there is actually an interesting scene with her visiting Lita. The whole scene gave me very Adam and Eve vibes. Maybe it's because they're the only two that exist there, but it's also like a beautiful Garden of Eden style place. It really makes Rose start to feel like a god, but Dream says she can create universes, so she basically is a god at this point. And I found it interesting that time moves differently in the dream world, and Lita's been there for months with an ever-growing stomach. This is where Dream starts to look like a straight-up villain from her perspective. There is actually no other way of looking at it. He is a straight-up villain from an old-school Disney movie. Bro killed the husband and is like,
Child was conceived in the dreaming. It is mine. One day, I will come for it.
Jesus, Dream, soften the blow a little bit. Where was all this character growth about connecting with people? I'm just saying, maybe don't piss off the magic vortex that's going to destroy your world. An interesting point here is that I previously called him the dream husband, but based on what Morpheus said, he's actually not really a dream. He's her actual husband trapped in the dreaming, which once again confirms my Cain and Abel headcanon.
You belong with the dead. You must go to the place appointed for you.
Yes, I'm still pushing this. I'm trying to convince you. Comment if I've convinced you. But no, this is actually her husband. He also violently killed Hector too, which was a little traumatizing. He could have taken him into the other room. But yeah, I find it interesting that Gilbert didn't know Rose was the vortex, and considering how all three of the dreams interacted with her, it really does feel like she's acting like a vortex, sucking them towards her. I mean, the Corinthian went looking for her, fair enough, but Gilbert didn't, and they still ended up in the same house. And out of all of the abused children in all of the world, Gold chose her brother. That couldn't have been a coincidence, so it was kind of an interesting lore drop. We also find out that Rose has to die to save the world. Reminds me a little bit of Cabin in the Woods, or this quote from Star Trek.
That the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few.
Is it right to sacrifice the life of one to save the many? Dream continues his growth, learning to bond with his creations. He literally comes to the librarian asking for advice and even said he was wrong.
Came to you and told you he was wrong. It was very nearly an apology. The Morpheus I knew was incapable of that.
He is still yet to apologize though, which means he still has some growth left to do. He is not a perfect god, or king, or man, but he's trying to be. There was a line in the episode that was a bit of a plot hole for me.
But if there is something new in the dreaming, and you did not create it, how did it get here?
It's so different from what you were talking about before. We have already established that not everything in the dream world was created by Morpheus, which means it makes no sense for her to ask this question. Are they now backtracking and claiming that everything in the dream world is created by Morpheus, or are they claiming that he at least should know about it? That makes sense, but he's also not omniscient. She had to go and do some kind of survey to find out who's new. It just... I get what they're going for here, but it just really doesn't make sense with the rest of the story. But that leads us into the finale with the worst possible situation. Like, things could not be worse. Rose's power is growing, the dreaming is coming apart, Lydia's husband is dead, the Croatian now has an army of serial killers basically, and the evil magic dream vortex sees Dream as an evil witch trying to steal a baby, which to be honest, kind of is at this point. Not gonna lie to you. So the question is, how could it possibly be worse? And how are they gonna solve all these different problems? Let's find out in the season 1 finale. The episode starts with the Corinthian honestly doing a really good job of convincing the main character that he is not the villain of the story. Hell, he would have convinced me. I would have believed him. When first watching it, I was really confused why he still wanted to go to the convention. I mean, there are bigger fish to fry right now. But then it hit me. He wanted to leave them as it was his best chance for her to fall asleep so she would weaken Dream. I mean, she ain't falling asleep around him. He's a weird new guy who's literally a killer. So it all makes sense. The speech he gives is perfectly suited to feed the delusion of these killers, making them out to be more than what they are, a plague on society, calling them special, the American dream, and
we are gladiators.
But with this, Morpheus appears in front of him as they prepare for what is basically the final confrontation. And Corinthian stabs the motherfucker with a knife, which is ballsy, to stab a god and your creator with a knife. And Dream actually bleeds. For a second there, I thought I owed Joanna an apology. Maybe her plan wasn't stupid. Maybe you can stab the devil with a knife. But then it just turns out that Dream is weakening. Rose is asleep and wandering the dream world. And if there is one place you don't want to be dream hopping, it's a serial killer convention, because their dreams are fucked up. It made me wonder if they could actually hurt her in the dream world, but I'm guessing she did not want to find that out. At this point, she does something that I find interesting. She controls her powers and puts the walls back up. Could this be Dream's happy ending where he doesn't need to kill her, but trains her to use her powers? Spoiler, that is not what happens. But it's what I thought was going to happen when I watched it the first time. I find it funny that the Corinthian has to know that the world is ending if she continues to be the vortex. All dreams seem to know what the vortex is. So in my mind, he's literally like, I'm gonna die anyway because Dream's gonna kill me. I might as well take it all down with me. Or, you know, maybe he really does think Rose can control her powers and become the new Morpheus. Who knows? It's at this point that Rose finds out why she has to die and is given the burden of deciding the fate of the world. Back in the real world, the Corinthian must face his creator. Honestly, this might be the most interesting interaction in the whole season. I know we had Lucifer, but I actually think that Corinthian embodies the idea of Lucifer Morningstar and the devil much better. He was created to do this, to kill and scare, and now he's being destroyed for what he was made to be. The Corinthian actually looks sad when he's being rejected by Dream. I also find this scene a little hypocritical as it shows Dream just can't be happy. He's an emo teenager. He was angry at Gold for not being a nightmare, and now he's angry at Corinthian for being one.
What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you want?
I know, it's because he went to the real world, but still. Aside from the reflection of Gold, the Corinthian is also a reflection of Gilbert as they both were trying to be more human.
So I can taste what it's like to be human.
Dream destroys the Corinthian with the implication that he might remake him one day.
Next time I make you, you will not be so flawed and petty.
Leaving behind the creepiest fucking skull I've ever seen in my life, and one that I definitely want for my living room. Morpheus then decides to punish the serial killers. This punishment is actually an interesting reflection of what he told John. John took away their waking dreams, their lies, their self-lies, and their fantasy, and now Dream is doing the same thing to these serial killers. He's forcing them to face the reality of what they are and what they have done without the hope or the dream, showing that without the fantasy, they are unable to live with what they've done.
I'm calling to confess to a crime.
Rose is then shown to slowly be accepting her fate, preparing arrangements for her passing. Lita has the baby and proceeds to say one of the stupidest things all season, matched only by threatening the devil with a knife.
If you have the power to destroy the world, then you have the power to destroy him.
Right, cool, she could destroy Morpheus. But the world is still destroyed, you and the baby included. That doesn't solve the problem. What does it solve, Lita? What? But either way, Rose falls asleep in order to have the final dream confrontation, breaking down the walls between the dreams and finally living up to the name Dream Vortex. Also, Ken is just catching strays here for no reason. Man can't even have a dream blowjob in a sports car without his wife intruding. Don't get me wrong, if he's really cheating on his wife, that's a different story. But a sex dream is not something you can control, so it does feel like he's catching a stray here for no reason. Also, this is the last time I will mention this, because the video is coming to the end. Cain and Abel head canon.
Death is not always such a bad thing. You could stay here if you like.
Enough said, I don't need to explain myself anymore. Unity finds out that she was meant to be the Vortex and makes the ultimate sacrifice for her family. Rose then proceeds to make a new family with Lita the baby, who Dream might still take away. You know that's keeping Lita up at night. Jed, and the Quirks from the house. That brings the Rose story to the end, as she writes a book where Dream is the villain, showing that she may still not have quite forgiven him, still the boogeyman coming for the child after all, and he did kind of kill her great-grandmother. I mean, he was saving the world, so it's a bit of a moral conundrum, but I doubt she sees him as the good guy. Now, Desire's plan confused me the first time I watched it, like what was the difference between Unity and Rose? But rewatching it for this video, I finally understood it. They seduced Unity, after all their name is Desire, in order to get Rose to be a family of the Endless. That is the difference between Unity and Rose. Rose is family of the Endless.
That I should spill family blood? With all that would entail.
There seems to be some kind of rule about the Endless fighting each other, and they were trying to get Dream to spill family blood in order to break that rule. What does this result in? Who knows? Not me. Maybe we'll find out in season 2. But there is a creator and there's some kind of rules. This final confrontation with Desire results in a new lore drop as well. God, there are a lot of final confrontations in this episode. It's like Lord of the Rings, wrap it up. Firstly,
do you believe yourself strong enough to stand against me?
So it seems like the Endless aren't equal in strength. It seems like Dream, Death, and Destiny are stronger than the siblings. But yeah, with that, the conflict of the season is resolved for now, with Desire implying that there's more cooking in the future. Foreshadowing season 2? I guess we'll find out soon. The next shot is Morpheus creating new dreams and new nightmares as he recreates Gold as a dream, fulfilling her dream. You know what you should do? You should re-watch this video and turn it into a drinking game. Every time I say the word dream, you take a sip of your drink. Because, oh my god, I am so tired of saying that word. But either way, it shows that he's willing to accept things are changing, including himself.
But now I'm listening. More. Trying to.
I like this really small detail of her struggling to take off, because she's new to the wings, it takes her a second to get the feel for it, but when she does, she's able to fly around. But her takeoff is quite rough if I'm being honest. A further display of Dream's character growth is the fact that he gives Librarian power, showing that while once he was a lone wolf who wanted to do everything alone, he is now a pack animal.
Would you mind taking care of things while I work?
The final scene then transports us to Hell, and seems most likely to be useful foreshadowing for season 2, as Lucifer seems to have taken aim at Dream.
And bring Morpheus to his knees.
Final point before I end this video, this is one of the coolest demon designs I've ever seen. I absolutely love it. But yeah, with that, we come to the end of season 1. What are my final thoughts? Season 1 was obviously split into 3 arcs. John and the Ruby, the Death Interlude, which was only 1 episode, and Rose as the Vortex. I realized I spent more time talking about the first half, with John and the Ruby and Death and the Interlude, and honestly, I just thought it was the better part of the show. It was more interesting and there were more things to talk about. Aside from the episode with the serial killer convention, I found the second half to be a little lacking compared to the first. It was still good, but the first half was really special. That being said, I am excited to see what the second season brings, so grab your popcorn, have a seat, and maybe I'll create a video on season 2 if there's something to talk about. But also, let's say if this video gets 1,000 likes, I'll do a part 2 on the full season 2 retrospective. This was by far my longest video and took the most amount of work I've ever put in. I'm burnt out. No, I'm kidding, I loved making this video. Sandman is such an interesting show. I really hope you enjoyed the video half as much as I enjoyed making it. If you've made it this far, you might as well let me know. What episode was your favourite? Mine was obviously 5, the theatre production of the lying episode. I thought it was just such an interesting look into human nature. My favourite character was the Corinthian. I'm not saying he was a good guy, but he was the most interesting character for me. His subtle manipulation through the stories actually made him a joy to watch. And he had a certain charisma about him. I liked the actor. But more importantly than any of that, have you subscribed yet? There's a cookie in it for you. Amazon next day delivery. Okay, that was a lie. No cookie. But there are more videos in store just like this one, so that should be a reward enough. If you are craving more content for now, while I'm making the next ones, why not check out my other videos? Otherwise, until then, have a great day and see you in the next video.